Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Velocity Sellers Podcast. I am your host, Velocity Pete, and today I am joined by Ryan Yamamoto, a marketing specialist, I will call him. And I think that I know a lot of people that would agree. And I feel like a lot of your friends would agree and your coworkers. We're here to talk about multi-channel and omni-channel marketing and how it can benefit you pertaining to your Amazon sales, pertaining to your general e-commerce sales. And I'm excited, Ryan, to go over a lot of different topics with you and cover a few different things. Ryan is located, if you don't mind me saying, in the city of San Diego, home of my new football team, or former home of my new football team, the San Diego Chargers. I didn't like when they moved to LA. I think LA should not have three football teams, or is it two? Maybe is it three?
Two at the moment, but it's such a point of contention for people in San Diego. It's
Right.
it's you have those that love that they moved and those that absolutely have turned their back and will never be a fan again.
It's horrible. It's a shame. But I like Justin Herbert and Mike Harbaugh. So um, I could not care less about the Cowboys anymore. They're tanking this season. Go for it. I don't care. Get a good draft pick, whatever, fine. But I won't take too much of our time on this because it's going to make me mad. Ryan is a senior manager of commerce at Tenuity, a omni-channel, full-channel marketing companies, and I'm excited to talk to Ryan a lot about the strategies behind what it takes to drive marketing to all different kind of channels and how it can again empower your e-commerce. So if you like our discussion and you like all the other discussions I've had with multiple other guests, please feel free to drop a like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of the Amazon information. So, Ryan, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and give us your sort of your background in this space, kind of how you came to be, um, again, really in this space and sort of an expert. So I'll hand the mic over to you if you want to give us a little elevator pitch of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, honestly. My name is Ryan Yamamoto again, and I went to University of California, Santa Barbara, which is not a terrible school to go to if anyone knows. But from there, didn't really know what I wanted to do and got a job as a media coordinator for another smaller agency kind of here in San Diego, and is really just more focused in linear TV, which is kind of funny how it died out so much, and then it's a little bit on a bounce back, depending upon how you want to look at it, and with the major shift to digital. But I did that for several years, and then pivoted over to joined up with Tenuity, and started working directly in Amazon more so in that level of digital marketing. And as that's even evolved to grow more now into streaming TV and it's sponsored TV. Again, it's been a little bit of a fun, um, almost deja vu whiplash sometimes when I'm hearing conversations that clients are having, and I'm like, is this 2014 or 2016 right now? But it's been really, really fun. And so definitely enjoy what I get to do. I get to manage a team of people that we're all working in multiple Amazon accounts. And recently our company has restructured around more verticals. So for the first half of this year, I was working primarily with CPG products, which is a ton of fun and also has its own individual challenges. And then have shifted now over to Softline's products, some more of your apparel. And again, you would think that all being Amazon, very much the same, but very different challenges in terms of your ASINs, your variations, your inventory. And so at the end of the day, it's always dynamic. It's always fun. At the time of our recording too, we're getting ready for all of the Black Friday holiday shopping. So Q4 is always a wonderful, chaotic masterpiece for our industry.
And I'm excited to get into a lot about basically what you just said. I do want to say for our viewers that yes, we are recording before Black Friday, but for you, Ryan, this episode will come out after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, maybe in between this and Christmas. And I am one of those people. I will say this as a disclaimer. I am one of those people that I am done my Christmas shopping on Black Friday. Unless it's like a last minute something I see in a store, but the majority, 90% of my gifts are bought on Black Friday. So by the time this episode comes out, I will have all of my Christmas shopping done for all the people that I want to give a gift to. So,
I make that commitment every year, and I don't know if I've ever actually stuck to it, but I definitely try every year.
it's not 100%. You can never have 100%, which will somehow I'll use that to segue back into our discussion. You can never have 100% completed on time, expected, exactly what you want. I always find some like last minute gift that I'm like, oh, mom would love this, or X, Y, and Z would love this. Like this would be perfect. So it never happens 100%, but I would say all of my planned gifts, like everything I know, like I see it on Amazon, add it to my cart. I wait for the fateful day that they drop the coupon and the strike through price, and then boom, purchased. So let's think. How can I tie that back into our discussion? I want to get 100% of uh, your knowledge on this, or at least a large majority of it, and how how people can or might be missing out on a lot of these opportunities that they're not doing by not doing these different advertising campaigns. So I'd love if you could run through the difference, if you could like a brief overview of the different sectors or different segments that Tenuity operates in. And I know you said TV is one, of course, and you're right. Like it starts to think that maybe what's that old song from MTV? Video killed the radio star. It feels like social media is killing the TV star, so to speak here. So, but I'd love to get into the different sectors and kind of break each one down and just kind of give the benefits for each and maybe talk about the different targets and who can really use the different sections. So I know that's like a lot of questions in one. So let's just start with what spaces does Tenuity operate in?
Yeah, so Tenuity for the most part, and again, this is the most part because we definitely branched out into really trying to touch into everything, but we really focused on the triopoly of, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. And then since then, that obviously has also grown so much in itself. Now Amazon has its own TV and, everyone has expanded so much. Facebook now with all of its social media with, Instagram and whatnot too, but have also expanded into outside of just those cores. We have email and lifestyle marketing, which I'll be honest, I was very biased to think like isn't going to be very successful and has actually still stayed way more successful than I thought it was going to and is way more relevant. So we have that going with SMS. We have influencer, of course, which is a really big deal, not just on, the Amazon attribution links and whatnot like that and partner links, but also just influencer for, getting UGC, getting TikTok, social media, TikTok shop now is something that we've expanded more into. And I will fully caveat, I have not gotten on the TikTok train in terms of my own personal account. Obviously, I'm on it as a, millennial that sees it 2 weeks later on Instagram on a reel or whatnot. And my wife is very, very into it. I have tried to stay away as much as I can, but I know how huge it is. So I'm very much involved. But we definitely have expanded into that as well. And again, all these other areas with TV podcasting is now a huge piece of it too. That I think has only gotten bigger, even especially after like the recent election and a lot of the U.S. politics. Podcasts have only grown more and more and more, as has the advertising, the opportunities within them. So a lot of things like that we've expanded into. I'm trying to think anything else that I think that really covers a lot of what we've done outside of, I guess, billboards. I don't think are coming back
Yeah.
immediately
Mm,
anytime soon. But
yeah.
yeah, we really try to touch it all.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about podcasts. If anybody out there wants to sponsor us, I will put something on the bookshelf back here, one of your products. Some of the podcasts I watch do have they'll have like cans of some sort of beverage. I'll even drink it on the recording if you want to sponsor us. So that's a big window of opportunity for anybody out there, and maybe one of your clients that needs advertising on a podcast would be interested. But in any case, now I'm being a little salesy. But seriously, if anyone wants to sponsor the podcast, let me know. But very cool. No, I know omni-channel is a big topic. Not even just omni-channel marketing, but obviously omni-channel expansion. You mentioned doing things like Facebook, TikTok, and Amazon, all places where you can sell your product now,
Hmm.
and all places that you can also advertise on. And even on Google, there's the Google Shopping that'll take you to, multiple different websites on there. And obviously, of course, on the podcast, the podcasts I watch, they give you a link to click right then and there to go to the store. So it's very interesting that again, this idea of being on of spreading, casting your net as far and wide as you can, is beneficial not only just for brand awareness, like you want to be on the marketplaces that apply to your niche. I had a guest on that we talked a lot about that, about not every single product needs to be on Etsy or needs to be on dicksportinggoods.com or needs to be on these other big retail sites. It wouldn't fit. It wouldn't make any sense. Some products don't even work on TikTok, believe it or not, after all the success there. Some products, I hate to say this because this is our business, some products don't even really work that well on Amazon. So it's important to cast your net wide, but also to make sure that you're not casting it in the wrong direction. And so I'd love to just hear more about the approach you guys take when in Tenuity when it comes to when you get a new client. What's your approach on picking out these different pieces, and how do you identify what markets and what advertising platforms are best for them?
Yeah. Incredibly loaded question, obviously, right? Too, depending upon their vertical. But I think it'd start with, CPG is one of the easiest ones where when we get a CPG client, it's always fun to figure out and start with, okay, where are you currently? And, Amazon does have a lot of CPG capability also with their acquisition and ownership of Whole Foods, and Amazon Fresh is a really big deal too. And, now there's even advertising opportunity in store in a Whole Foods where you can start to own their in-aisle banners or their digital signage as soon as you walk into the store. And that I think is a opportunity that didn't exist maybe 3 or 4 years ago in the same way that now it's getting opened up a lot more, where again, it's really kind of bringing that, what you'd expect is like e-commerce to now go back to in person,
Right.
which is really, really
Which is
interesting.
crazy.
And so, right, I mean, it really
Yeah.
is, time is a flat circle. It's always coming back around in some way. And so I think after figuring out, where someone is, it's also expanding into those other retails. Target is great if you're, wanting to run with Criteo. Walmart is getting significantly more robust. It's still a little bit behind Amazon, in my opinion, and I am biased that Amazon is my primary channel, but you're watching it grow more and more and more. So I think that, depending upon your vertical, love to expand into those. I know Kroger has done a lot and was really one of the first leaders to say, like, we have all of your data because of your Kroger card, and we're going to be able to use it. And so, they were one of the first kind of data clean room channels that you could kind of work with specifically for CPG. So really figuring out, depending on the client, again, if you're CPG, like, where are you? Let's build that as best as we can first. Then let's get incremental money to go into these others. I'm very much someone that likes to do something really, really well before we just do 9 things 20% well.
Right.
And again, different strategies work for different people depending upon how you want to expand and grow. But I really like doing that. And then again, going into, okay, what does TV look like? What does potential for a podcast for a commercial for you look like? What is streaming TV, online video, a lot of those things after we have the base kind of set for us. And a lot of that too, I found with, vendors and sellers is always a little bit nervous for them to expand into something. They're like, hey, I don't really know what this is. I don't know what to expect. And so a lot of it is just having to establish that trust and say, like, hey, here are the experiences that we've seen. Here are the examples of success. If you don't want to do it, obviously, let's not jump any guns here, but let's put it on a roadmap. And so I think, especially too, given the time that we're in right now, it's really fun doing that for 2025. Getting more clients to expand into something like a DSP or even a Google display that they hadn't had the budget for, hadn't wanted to test, but I think would be a great opportunity.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because we've got some clients here that we had Jordan on from Carbon 6, and one of our services is Google Pixel Me, where they do, I think, something similar. It's just Google ad searches. And it was funny because I have some clients that we've signed on to their service, and it felt like it was harder to get them to do the Google ads than it was for them to sign up for our Amazon management services.
Sure.
Because it was so the Amazon management for them, I guess, was just so much more straightforward. It was, we handle everything on Amazon for you. But for the Google, it's like, oh, Google, I don't know about Google ads. I don't know if I can run those, even though that, they're taking care of everything. It's just they're hesitant to do that. So it's very interesting that you say that. I'd be curious. So do you think you see that a lot of people saying, well, we sign up for one section or one, I'm not sure how do you guys differentiate between, like, what would you call the different TV, commerce, social media, search sections, markets?
We just call it channels.
Channels, that
Typically
makes more
kind of keeps
sense.
it easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different, synonyms you can use to call it.
Yeah. But do you see people that come in for maybe like one particular channel or that sign on and they ask you for recommendations? Do you see them being nervous about expanding to a bunch of other different channels that maybe they didn't think about before?
A little bit, and I think some of that just comes from the way that each channel functions differently, and you have to read the data a little bit differently.
Mhm.
So again, Amazon is a very unique way. I mean, again, they decided to not even try to use ROAS and create their own KPI for it, for instance, right? So, like, I think a lot of folks that are really, really in Amazon then have a difficulty expanding into something like Google or even vice versa. uh, because it's just a very different language. And I think that requires an extra level of learning. And again, trust, I think, is a big part of it.
Interesting. Yeah, I would think eh, I would like it to be the other way where um, people aren't nervous about doing this, and obviously because it's the business that we're both in, about expanding to these different or different channels, like you call them sectors, different channels and different avenues of marketing. But um, it seems like, and hopefully maybe in 2025, like you said, with the rise of these different marketing channels and the rise of maybe even the economy a little bit. I know my stocks are doing pretty good right now, so maybe people are willing to consider expanding more and spending a little more money on this stuff to just see the potential return and see the potential ROI. So
Yeah, and like not to get too salesy on it either, but I mean that's something that for our agency has been a top point that we're trying to help bridge the gap, I think, with that understanding. So we're doing a lot of, MMM media mix modeling to be able to say how do we show success across all these channels speaking to one another? Because I think a lot of times they inherently won't, or at least maybe intuitively won't if you have your ROAS on Google, but it's using a very different conversion metric than what you'd have on your direct D2C or on Amazon. How do you get all those to speak to one another? And so, we're definitely taking a approach to try to make that as not just so much that we can understand it, but that we can also narratively explain it to our clients and show it with, dashboards, technology, really show how a lot of these things play into one another.
very interesting. No, yeah, I like it, and it's always exciting to see new things and always exciting to see different dashboards. I know, I get after meeting with a lot of these smart people like yourself, and it's fun to kind of play around on their website and see like kind of poke around, and it's like, oh, like what do they have different? Like what's going on here? Um, but yeah, the speaking of again your website and you're again back into a little bit of Tenuity. I would love to know any kind of jumping into any kind of examples or any kind of case studies that you guys have out that you can um, tell us here on the episode of stuff that you guys have done to really help increase for anyone that's on the fence out there about maybe expanding to omni-channel marketing. What have you done to help increase some of these clients that you guys have with the use of using all these different channels?
Yeah, I think there's an example that I was directly part of last year in 2023, which was, really getting one of our clients, and actually they were featured at Amazon Unboxed, which was very, very fun for us. And like very fun for me is one of our clients got to go into a streaming TV ad for the first time and got to use a QR code to basically try to get people to drive to their store page. And so it was fun where we got to say, hey, there's been no TV experience. Let's cut an ad. Um, let's let it run for, I think it was like a 4 to 6 week flight, and then really measure it based upon branded searches. I think that QR codes as of 2023 were still very new. I mean, they still are now, and it's sometimes still asking a viewer a lot in the middle of seeing something to grab their phone and take an image and, kind of snap it. And so that was a great thing to be able to track directly, but we knew it was never going to be the largest impactful factor. It was more so, hey, let's show TV. Let's see if we can see our branded searches increase. And we really did. And it was wonderful. And so now we've been able to bake that into this client's kind of perpetual strategy where we flight it, not necessarily evergreen throughout the entire year, but we'll have, like a 10 weeks on, take a slight break depending on seasonality, flight it back on for another 10 weeks, show like a new style for their, for their shoe or, whatever it happened to be. And it's been fun to watch something that was a small test that we were like, we're going to find out and see, then become baked into, we're doing this now all the time.
It's interesting, and I keep having these little branches where you say something I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Seasonality, do you see a lot of seasonality in of course, everyone's got that big Q4 spike, but are there any, like, weird seasonality trends that someone, like a normal person, wouldn't think about? Like, is there a weird TV spike, maybe around the Super Bowl? Obviously, that's a big one, but, anything, like, off, the normal off the beaten path that you see, in any of the channels?
Yeah. So now that I've shifted over to, I've joined up with a department that, focuses primarily only in soft lines and apparel. It's one of my current projects that my director has given me is to create a, 2025, what are all the seasonality tentpole events that we need to worry about? Obviously, you have your expected Black Friday, your Prime Day, your inevitable Prime Big Deal Day, fall,
Yes.
October, whatever it happens to be. But it's been fun to think about it from like an apparel point of view, how something like graduation season comes into effect that I don't think would matter as much maybe if you were CPG, but graduation. We have a lot of mother of the bride dress clients, and so wedding season is something that I did recently get married last year, but I never really considered it as a season. And so that's probably my own ignorance. But now that plays a factor in, okay, how do we want to consider that for some of our clients? Naturally you have your spring, summer, winter, but yeah, for television, Super Bowl Sunday and around that is huge. Also big for CPG, but it matters a lot for apparel as well. Mother's Day, Father's Day matters a lot more with some seasonality. And we're also noticing a lot more of these retailers do uh, kind of like niche specific events like a baby week, which I think has now been something on Walmart where they'll do, where if you're any kind of, infant, baby, whatever it is product, here's that to be featured. And so Amazon does that too, where they had a pet day. I think now they've expanded into a pet week. They also have a baby week. And so one of the expectations that I have for 2025 is a lot more of these kind of small niche particular events are going to become louder. Whether it's through push notifications on your phone, I think AI just learning us a lot more and
Right.
figuring out like, hey, if you've purchased this, I can retarget you by saying,
Baby week.
here's
Here's this.
exactly
Yeah.
like dog owner week, whatever it happens
Yeah.
to be, to get people more involved.
Yeah. But on the episode that comes out on 25th, we had Joe Lampagiva on, and she's like an AI super genius. And we talked a lot about that as well, about just the retargeting and using the AI like in companies like yours to really identify these different people and stuff like that. It was very cool. Very good discussion. But one of the things I wanted to quickly, it's a very just silly thing to go back to that I forgot when we were talking about sort of making the e-commerce in person, where Walmart is like shop online, pick up in stores. They're very big into that. Amazon unfortunately tried to do that, but it did not last very long. But Walmart has the I mean, there's a Walmart in every town basically now. There's at least like gotta be like 1,000 in every state, even like the smaller states. Probably even more at the very minimum. Maybe places like Montana only have a few, but in any case, it reminded me, and also speaking of the Super Bowl commercials, it reminded me. I think this was a Super Bowl commercial. I'll have to have maybe Jake fact check me. The Kmart commercial, and I have to maybe also have Dara print this so that people don't think I'm cursing. Where they talked about shipping your pants. I just shipped my pants. I just shipped my drawers. I just shipped my bed, and it was all about if you can't find things in store, or if you can't find things in the store that you're in, go online. This is years ago, probably like 8 years ago.
Well, you
Um,
did say Kmart.
I think it was Kmart. Yeah, I think it was. And yeah, that's true. I think it was Kmart. God rest their souls. Um, I think it was Kmart, and it was if you didn't find something in your location, in your store, you could ship it to your location online from one of their big warehouses. And I have no doubt that Walmart and pretty much every other big retail does the exact same thing. But um, it was funny because I just thought of that Super Bowl commercial, and also talking about the e-commerce in person type of thing. So it's very interesting to go through and listen and hear kind of what you're seeing on your end, with this again, with these shifting tides and shifting trends. But it's very, again, like I thought the commercial was very funny. Um,
Well, I think with that too, what you're speaking to is I also have a pivot that I will absolutely just tell you a funny story on Kmart in a second, which you can absolutely clip and doesn't need to be included, but I just thought it was hilarious. But I think it's kind of showing though that, for that commercial years ago, there was this push of like, hey, you know us, we can ship things to you. Let's come to you. And now we're almost having this bounce back a little bit where it's okay, you're doing so much online shopping. You can also come in store now too. And it's really just trying to bring everything back. And it's really speaking to that overall interconnectivity that I think that everything is doing. And I think again, I mentioned television. I think it's really interesting the way that you know, what was it? Last Friday we had the Tyson Paul Netflix live event fight, right? But you have even that section of television where Netflix has now released a paid tier for advertising, and they're expanding more and more into their live, trying to take it away from cable television, their live events. And for Christmas this year they're hosting two football games.
it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even know about the whole Netflix football thing. Again, I have very much disconnected this year. Um, my baseball team lost. My Phillies lost. My Cowboys are the Cowboys. So it's a disaster. But in any case, it's very interesting to think that these streaming services are Um, I mean, they're adapting, and I remember when Netflix was, first out and there was no ads. That was their big selling point, was you pay this one monthly fee, there's no ads. And you can still do that. You can still have this subscription fee without ads, right? But Now, and even Amazon Prime Video, it didn't have any ads when they first aired and when it first was a thing. And now they say, well, we can get a lot of money from companies advertising in these spots because we have so many viewers of so many shows. Big fan of The Boys. Great show if you haven't watched it. A little gory, so don't watch it with your kids. But a very good show, and they realize there's opportunities here. And I think, like you said, it's history is a loop. It's just repeating itself. It's just going back to, oh, color TVs just came out. How can we put advertisements on there? How can we advertise, this stuff on podcasts? Like when Joe Rogan started the sort of the podcast wave, and it's like, how can we get these podcast hosts that have millions and millions of viewers to talk about our products and so we can sponsor them and blah blah blah. So it's just very interesting to see how everything kind of comes around and goes back around.
And everything is, for the most part, non-endemic now. I mean,
Right.
Amazon just opened that on their platform. I believe it was towards the end of last year, but you can now see in, spots that used to just be DSP ads for
Hmm.
Amazon sellers and vendors. Now it's opening up to insurance companies or, a new Disney Plus show or whatever it
Right.
happens to be. And again, like everything is just getting more interconnected, which is again tying back to why if you are trying to advertise on a channel, have the curiosity to explore all these different ones.
Right.
Obviously do what you do very, very well, but keep that open mind because there's going to be this opportunity and things are consistently growing and expanding.
Hmm. And you guys, I'm sure you guys have demographic data too on all these different platforms, all these different channels of. I think a lot of e-commerce businesses would be really surprised to learn. I know I was when I kind of did a little bit more research into what demographics are on what different channels these days. I would have thought TikTok was, I'm sure it is, but I would have thought TikTok was overwhelmingly majority dominated by children and kids under the age of 18. That I know there's different advertising laws for them. So I thought, oh, that's kind of hard, but I think it's a little bit more split of people our age. Um, and people in that like different higher age brackets, like the 20 to like 36. I mean, I've got aunts that are on TikTok that are older. So it's very interesting. I think a lot of people, a lot of businesses would be surprised to learn that demographics are not. You shouldn't judge a demographic by its cover. Like, shouldn't judge a channel's demographic by the implied assumption of who uses it. It's very interesting to see the success of some of these products on TikTok Shop. That I would think, what kid is buying this? But it's not kids. It's people that are again 24 to 40. So
And the fun conversation too that some of them might have been kids 4 years ago when TikTok blew up
right,
during the pandemic,
right.
but let's say they were 18 or 19 then, now they're 22, 23, 24 and have their young adult or, mid 20s, late 20s money. And so there's a lot more, um, I think, power in that audience. And people almost are still thinking about it like it's brand new. But
Hmm.
these people have grown up with it and love it and trust it and are buying things off of it.
Right. It's really, really weird to see how far TikTok has come in the past, like even like 2.5 years of we're going to ban it to now it's like a hugely fast growing e-commerce, social commerce platform. It's insane. It's insane. And I guess I can check before this episode comes out. You should check out I have some decently funny TikToks when I was a TikToker. I have also given up the platform. I've given up most social media. My accounts are still out there, so maybe I should probably take care of that. But I'm not on Instagram, not on Facebook. I was using Facebook for birthdays a lot, but I had to give that up because those doom scrolling is a real thing.
Sure.
Instagram, Snapchat, none of that. I'm on Reddit, which some people, shout out to my college friends that would argue for hours and hours on end about whether Reddit was a social media or not. I think it is. I had some people that said it wasn't. But in any case, it's very interesting to see just again what type of people and what age brackets are on there, and how many of those different demographics could be purchasing your products. So
Well, all we'll say on the Reddit end, we do some Reddit advertising as well, and the account executive that we talked to there does also call it a social media platform.
there it is, everybody. Reddit. This I want to, especially my friend John, love him to death. He's my brother. Um, John, and I know he watches these. Reddit is a social media. Sorry, bud.
And I just found myself last night accidentally clicking into something I didn't know was an ad, and I read it thinking it was just someone's post. I mean, Reddit does advertising very, very, uh, pseudo organically. I think as anyone else can try to, and it's can be very effective.
as someone again that has experienced social media ads, being growing up in the 2000s, stuff like that, and using social media in 2010s, the ads on Reddit are so much different than anything else out there. Because, like you said, it looks like someone is posting this. It looks like it could be just a. And when you see the same one over and over again in your feed, then you start to recognize it. But on that first initial impression, you're like, oh wow, like what is this? Maybe this is something cool. Is this something that I'm in a subreddit for? And it's not. Um, but Reddit is the ultimate example, I think, of my what I'm saying here about the whole demographic shift of any single person. There's ages 6 to 96 on Reddit. So you could have a potentially a lot of customers on there, especially if you just, say you're maybe say you're a CPG and you're in like a different food subreddits. Like there's, I would think anyway, a lot of potential. And obviously you know more than I do, but there's got to be a lot of potential there for new customer acquisitions, just brand awareness in general. Someone sees your brand on an ad on Reddit and they go into the food market. They go into a Kroger, they go into we have down here Tom Thumb, big fan. I am a member there, so they have my information. But they go into their local supermarket and see, oh wow, I saw this on Reddit. Maybe I'll give it a shot. So I would assume there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, and it's funny, that was actually our direct, that was a direct example that we did, is that we had a client that was, an alcohol client. And so, of course, a lot of restrictions to what they could or couldn't do, couldn't sell on Amazon, even on Google, could only advertise in certain states, especially too when it came to, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it was. There's a lot of those restrictions. And Reddit does have those, but it's a lot less. And so we were able to use certain subreddits for, r/cocktails or, whatever it happened to be to help try to promote this new alcohol product. And so, again, a lot of opportunity in a lot of these different areas. And to the point that you asked me a lot earlier, like, how do you expand? I think a lot of it is, or, get clients to want to go into something. I think a lot of it is, let's figure out where we're established. And, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's really fun being part of a larger agency with so many different channels where you almost kind of can show that menu of like, you might not know these exist. Here's everything that we can even just have as a conversation to consider. And maybe we can bake it into, give it 90 days. Let's test it out and see what happens.
Right. Let's give it a shot at least and try it out. It's kind of what I say to a lot of people as well. I was just like, let's give it a chance. With all of our new ad campaigns, and we sign a lot of we sign a decent amount of people that are new to Amazon, that don't have any history, that don't have any ad experience, that don't know the different metrics, and I don't want to say don't understand Amazon, but they're brand new. So this is a whole new frontier for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we do and I'm sure you guys as well, a lot of what we do PPC wise is we just and shout out to Chris, our advertising genius, is we'll start out very low and slow and just test and see, okay, what works for your product? What keywords are working for your product? Sometimes we get these big hits that are, oh my God, this is great. It's converting at like a 5 ROAS. This is awesome. And other times it'll be, well, that didn't work out. Now we know. So we can, we can try something new. But I feel like and you can agree or disagree with me. I feel like that's the same way from at least my limited understanding of these different channels of you have to test it. Not everything's going to be an Air Jordan, but you have to at least test it and try to see.
I think you got to test and try to see. And I think it's also important, especially if you're going to have hesitation, which is more than fair, to test it small and slow and not too much at once so that you can feel comfortable when something does have a success, or even if it does, let's say not hit the mark that you wanted it to, you can feel somewhat more confident knowing, okay, it was probably this factor versus when I think sometimes if you try to test too much at once, it can be a little bit overwhelming to figure out like what did or what didn't. I don't really know. I feel like I'm losing my control, etc.
Right.
And so again, especially if you're kind of starting slow, but it is fun once you get to expand into all these things. And I love when I get to work with my team and, we have these successes with Amazon. We're having similar successes with Google. We have a lot of clients too that will drive Google traffic to their D2C.
Right.
And their D2C is a button that just says to buy on Amazon, and kind of loops back that way. But we do find that being successful because I think part of that purchasing, nonlinear journey is maybe someone looking at it on Amazon and feeling like, I don't know, let me go check the website to see if, again, pricing comparison or whatever it happens to be, get some legitimacy and realize like, oh, I am safe then to buy on Amazon and, go back to it. And I think in a perfect world, every advertiser or every client would love that someone just sees something, trusts it immediately, adds to cart right, and then is good. But we're in this era where I think things need that greater time. And again, the media mixed modeling of like, how many ads does it take for someone to see something, add it to cart, purchase it, um, is such a useful piece of data right now. And actually, if we could pivot over to, would love to talk about like AMC
Yes, please. The
and
movie
like the
theaters?
new pardon?
The movie theaters?
Oh yeah. Oh, the old what was
Ugh.
the 2020 stock and all
That
the
was, yep,
craze that we had off of
that
it?
and, BlackBerry, Nokia. Come on. Come on. No,
Nokia.
I'm not gonna say anything about. I know I have some friends that bought that and said, "This is a good idea." And admittedly, I am in some of the cryptocurrencies, which I made fun of a little bit back in the day, but, um, AMC, yes, we're talking about the movie theaters. No. For our viewers that don't know, and maybe a little bit of me, AMC, you're meaning in terms of.
The Amazon Marketing Cloud, essentially like clean room for its data, where it can go and gather everything. And I think, again, looking at 2025, what's going to be huge is this announcement just came out in this month in November, in the last week or so. Now, Amazon sellers and vendors can use AMC data. If you have an instance, which unfortunately is not currently self-service, you do have to have an Amazon partner or someone to be able to set it up for you. But they can take AMC data and use it for just regular sponsored advertising. And that's an update to sponsored products. And I think sponsored brands is going to roll out for in December. That's an update that like a sponsored product ad type, which if you're on Amazon, it's your bread and butter. It's the thing that you're probably putting 90% of your budget into, or, 60 plus, depending upon what you're doing. It hasn't had a good update in years. And so this is huge for them to be able to say, we can take this audience data and not only use it for bid modifiers and say like, hey, we're going to go after audiences that have a greater chance of purchasing, but also we can now target audiences that maybe were cart abandoners. That's something that I think was a little bit more DSP specific back in the
Yeah.
day. So not every seller was really going to have that opportunity. Now we can target people like that with cart abandoners, with high value repeat purchase rate. And, one thing that we're really playing with and testing is how can we use AMC data where you can figure out how to better target a new to brand customer. Because I think that, Amazon's new to brand not purchasing last 365 days is great. But if you do have something like a CPG product, or you do have like, a lot of repeat purchases, it's not always worth the same. It's great to get someone in the door in the first time, but you almost want to know, can I get them to purchase, or should they be purchasing, more often for this snack product or this beauty? I work with a lot of beauty brands that are wondering like, what's the replenishment rate? How soon are they going to finish their, skincare? What is the time that it takes for us to be able to try to get them to come back into it? And so if we can take that data and say like, hey, actually, new to brand is great if it's once every 90 days and not necessarily within the last 365, it helps us to get in front of the right people. And again, this is still new. We haven't had a full time to test it yet. It just came out, I think, in the last like week or two, but we're definitely wanting to build that and see if we can have an increase in conversion and consideration, because we're just going after, more relevant customers.
Right. I hate those cart abandoners on Amazon and in general, in like the grocery stores or any kind of retail store with a cart. I hate those people that just leave them in the middle of the parking lot or, um, the worst, the absolute worst. It's very. As someone that used to work at a grocery store, I worked in the bakery, so I didn't work in the front end where they get the cart returners are, but, um, I had to do it once or twice when we were short staffed, and it is not fun to have to go across the parking lot and grab a cart that someone just left there when it's so. And that's like a fun moral dilemma is, do you have a moral obligation to return the shopping cart? My answer is obviously yes.
It's the shopping cart. I don't know if it's called theory or whatever it is, but
Yep,
right, like that's the one true test of
correct.
morality, because to return it, you get nothing.
Nothing at all.
It's
Nothing at
just
all. And we could go on
knowing you did
a
something
whole
good for
different.
somebody.
We can go on a whole different tree, not even just a branch, whole different tree about, the act of doing nice things, and the reward of holding the door for somebody is not the thank you that they may or may not give you. The reward is doing the good deed, and you don't technically get anything for it. I know some people, you'll like I had a really really good tweet. It got like 6 likes. Really good tweet. It said it was something silly like that. That said, don't hold the door. So someone says thank you. Hold the door because holding the door is a nice thing to do. 6 likes. It was pretty. It was pretty popular. That's pretty good for X, or Twitter. But in any case, yeah, no. using all of this stuff and using all of the different AMC and new technologies coming out, I also want to kind of get into the idea of AI and learn about maybe if you guys are using AI at all, if you're incorporating anything into Rufus. I know Rufus has a new advertising system now too, where you can not necessarily advertise on Rufus, but when they pull up the results, you can actually put sponsored ads on there. It's very I think that kind of ruins the whole point of Rufus to be very, sort of ad free, but I get it that Amazon, I don't blame them, their business, they wanna make money in every way possible, so, I can see how that would be popular. I love Rufus, big fan of that's the only AI right now, and maybe a little ChatGPT that I'm, not scared of. I'm actually kind of I know Jake is on this one, but I'm a little scared Jake's gonna replace me with an AI podcast guest at some point. So I have to or a AI podcast host. So I have to really stay on my toes and make sure that all these episodes are great. Um, but in any case, I see a lot of with this. I'm curious to know at Tenuity if you guys are using AI at all and how.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think at this point, everyone's using it in some way, shape, or form,
Right.
right? A little bit. Um, for Amazon with like a Rufus in particular, I think it's also been interesting where we've been trying to pry out of AEs a little bit of how we can influence that more. Because of course, it does say your sponsored ads can pop up in a Rufus search, but they're not, at least to what I've had recent conversations with, giving us a direct playbook into, here's
Correct.
the most efficient way in which you can do it.
Mhm.
So it's something that we are keeping an eye on, and how can we get our sponsored product ads to show up there? And I think that this, again, not to keep badgering on the same point, but I think we'll play into that. Like, how do we have something like an AMC audience that maybe a Rufus intentioned search is the reason why it gets flagged in a audience of like, hey, this is a high value customer. We should have a increased bid modifier or something like that for it. And so keeping an eye on it in that regard. We've played with the Amazon AI uh, creative tools that they've used a little bit, and we've had some success with that depending upon the product. If you just have your CPG item or apparel item, and you're like, hey, I want a fall background, or I want to whatever it happens to be, and sometimes you can get some pretty decent creative out of it that you can throw on a banner and find to be working, and so that's always fun. Sometimes when it comes into using people, it has a problem, or we've seen some AI custom images that have like really weird looking hands. So we've definitely drifted away from trying to use people in products. But those tools are very, very fun. We use a lot of automation when it comes to, or we try to use a lot of automation when it comes to, bids and budgets and forecasting and predictability. And so that can create some fun models for us that we have where we can say like, hey, what do we think in terms of like a budget navigator? Should we expect, let's say we're planning for, Q1 of 2025, and it can spit out a model for us, and we can look at it. And then of course, evaluate accordingly based upon what we know with inventory, or what we know with maybe we're gonna have a new product launch or whatever it happens to be. But I think if you're not using some form of AI to at least give validation to some of your theories and ideas, or to look at a baseline or even make a cross comparison, then you're definitely leaving something on the table, because it's there and it's an incredibly valuable tool to do.
I always ask this, I have to. Have you heard the story of Rufus? Like how it came to be named Rufus?
It was an old dog in the Amazon office, correct?
Correct. Yes. One of the first people that have actually known the story that I haven't had to tell. I feel like everyone should know this. Rufus was, and I'm sure all my podcast listeners are sick of me telling this story because I love it so much. But he was an old office dog, and they actually used him to launch new software back in the day. They would actually hold him up to the mouse and have him push his little paw down on the like
I
launch
didn't know
button.
that
So
part.
funny, so funny. But that's why it's like a little corgi icon on Amazon. Um,
Yeah, it's always the which again, we haven't hit Black Friday yet, but we can probably
yes.
expect at some point we're going to see the error of the sad dog and the oops. It
Yep.
happens every year at
Oh
some
yeah.
point.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's always fun. I know with us, when we did, we had a large San Diego office, and pre-COVID, when everyone was still in office, definitely had a wall of everyone's dogs,
Of
which was a
course.
ton of fun. One of our founding members had a amateur photography setup,
Hmm.
and so would come in and just like take professional-ish photos of everyone's pups, cats as well, if you wanted to bring them in the office.
Respect.
And it was very
Respect.
fun to hang them up and have a big wall.
That's cool. We have something, I guess something similar, like an online version because we're fully remote. Everybody in the company. But we have a Slack channel that is just for Velocity pets. So that's pretty active. It's very good time in there. I love seeing everyone's dogs in different outfits. Someone just sent their pug in like a sweater, which I love. Love dogs in human clothing. Um, it's a very fun trend that happens this time of year. We got our dog Rico, God bless him, like a nice, like almost like a designer coat. It looked like, and it was just so funny watching him go for walks in that thing whenever it was like cold out. Um,
Dogs living well. Yeah, we had
oh yeah,
a Halloween costume contest category just for pets.
love it. Of course, have to. Those the pet costumes get very creative too. I love seeing like a husky is an ambulance because they howl, they sound like an ambulance. So yeah, no, very interesting. Yeah, no, I am like I said, I'm a little scared of AI. I don't know where it's gonna go. I hope it makes my things that I don't want to do easier and doesn't take the things away that I do want to do. Like I don't know if you saw Elon Musk has his robot that'll actually like, cook and do your laundry. And I'm breaking down the gender walls here a little bit. I love to cook and I love doing the laundry because I'm an at-home partner. So I'm always here to do it. I love folding clothes. Love it. I love it. I think it's very, I don't know if it's just my um, ADHD. It's just I love folding and putting away the laundry. And I love to cook too. Big cooker. I just made catfish for the first time
Oh,
the other
nice.
day. It was very good. It was surprising. I didn't know what it was going to taste like. It tastes like chicken. If for anybody out there that is wondering, that is the rumor is true. Catfish does taste like chicken. All this is to say that I am leaning into AI slowly, but I know that it does have its applications. And I have no doubt that in 5, maybe even like less than that time, we will see a lot more of AI in the e-commerce space. Rufus will be even more powerful. Like you said, it'll be able to use AI to target you for these little niche holidays that they're kind of making up. Um, and the other funny branch I wanted to extend on was Walmart is so funny with these new like Walmart holidays that they always seemingly manage to launch the week before the Amazon ones. Like they had a Walmart Prime Day. I don't know what it was called, but they had a Walmart Prime Day the week before July Prime Day, and then they also did the same thing this for Fall Prime Day this year. They're hilarious. They're hilarious. They know exactly what they're doing. I think whoever is on the Walmart planning committee needs a raise because that is just so funny. Same thing with even Target did one. Target did their Ring Day like a week before Amazon's Fall Prime Day this year. Very, very funny. Very funny.
I think Best Buy has one too every once
Yep.
in a while, if not every year. I mean, there's always something, and you know there's going to be that big holiday shopping for all these cross retailers. And the data consistently shows, we use a lot of eMarketer, Numerator, that customers are looking at a lot of different sites to do, cross pricing comparison.
Correct. I was gonna say Amazon's very not sticky. Amazon's very picky about that, where you have to have the lowest price. I'm sure every single Amazon seller has been out there where they've said they've got a notification your product's listed less somewhere else. Blah blah blah. You need to change that, or we're gonna shut down your listing. So yeah, but sorry, keep going.
Oh no, I was going to say, yeah, that's part of, especially going into omni-channel when you're looking at a lot of these different retailers that we want to use is, bringing up beauty again. That was a large issue with last Black Friday with one of our clients, was that they ended up having a really big Ulta Sephora sale just before Black Friday. And so, of course, they ended up losing the buy box on so many of their primary ASINs because they were, a cheaper price elsewhere. And
Right.
so that became a very busy week for us to then try to shift over and switch around like, okay, what do we need to push instead to make sure that we can, not suddenly be dramatically under for the month of November because one retailer did really, really well, but Amazon's going to look really under because we're all, largely ineligible. But I think when you're doing these multiple channels, it's important to tell that story all together. And so that was a great period where we got to kind of band together as a team and say, hey, one channel is going to look really poor right now and the other one's going to look really, really great. But let's talk about that as what that meant for your entire brand over this entire week or 2 week period of time, I think, because I think it was like a 10-day deal on Ulta before Black Friday. And it really made the client feel a lot better than I think sometimes when you're only having to have one conversation with one POC that you hope is talking to one of their team members, but you don't really know if they really are. So it's great to be able to put it all out onto the field at once and get that whole collective storytelling narrative understanding.
I'm with you. It's very, like I said, it's very interesting to see the different ways that um, that I mean, that advertising and that everything else is really moving towards. I'm excited to see where it goes. Am I scared? A little bit, but um, I think it'll be more exciting, at least. It won't be boring, seeing where, again, these AI things take us in a few years. So at the very least, we have that to think about.
Yeah, it's I mean, we're seeing this too now more and more. I'm sure we're going to see it again this coming Black Friday, where you're starting to see in the ad console as well the suggested bid for like a Prime Day event. I think that
Right,
started last Black Friday, and we definitely saw it for Prime Day this year.
right,
And it's significantly higher, but how much more is that getting adjusted to a point where we almost default as a society into like, oh yeah, this AI is telling us things are going to be more expensive, CBCs are going to be a lot higher, therefore we're just complying with it.
right. Yeah, well, it'll be exciting to see. I'm excited to, again, like I said, it won't be boring at the very least. So it might be annoying, but it won't be boring. I like to ask this question to all my guests. And what is next at Tenuity? What is coming up? What's on the horizon? I know we started a little bit with this, but in 2025, what are we looking at for you guys specifically?
In 2024, we launched a new platform called BlissPoint. And so that's part of our own proprietary technology. And we used to have one that was called Mobius X. We acquired another company called BlissPoint that focused mainly on like streaming TV and whatnot. And they were a great tech platform. And so we've been able to combine that. And we're using that for, again, this kind of media mixed modeling. If you have all these different channels, how do we pull your data together, be able to show it? So, that's been a big push for this year, is just getting adoption from everybody and getting all these channels linked. And integration can take a really long time, right? There's a lot of kinks to work out. And so that's like a big thing for us for 2025 is being able to showcase that we've worked a lot of these kinks out. The data looks beautiful. It's in our classic Tenuity colors and whatnot of the your purples and blues, but like that we can be able to show that and prove that what we've always had is kind of like an ad theory, which sometimes you only ever have a theory, and if it works, hopefully it was because of your theory, but there's always a dozen other factors that could have been at play. The more that we can tie in and say like, hey, no, this actually did work for exactly what we want. And I forget who made this quote once upon a time, but it was that predictability is a lot more important than causality at any point in time when you're looking at your data and your media, where I want to be able to say, hey, let's look at everything that we have and figure out where we should be by the end of Q1 at the end of March. And so like that's a big idea, putting all of our data together right now and say, let's look at the year and already start making this 2025 grander plan. And so, yeah, that's like for me personally, but also I think for the company is, really trying to figure out how those things kind of tie themselves together and where what could look like underages or like one channel maybe underperforming is maybe not necessarily a bad thing if it's because something else was doing a lot better that it was tying directly into.
Hmm. Right. Like we said earlier, like if someone, if you get a Reddit ad, right, and you get it a couple times and you don't buy it from the ad, but then you go in and you to the supermarket and you buy it, you can't directly tie it to that. And if you can't measure it, you can't add that as part of your, I guess, success on that campaign. But um, you can still, like, it's sort of in your head and in your heart. You can attribute that to that person went in and bought this product because, or we had an increase in, store buys after we launched our Reddit campaign. So, I can attribute that to people saw our campaign enough and then went food shopping and bought our product. So,
It's the big challenge of last touch attribution, right?
right.
Is that you're like, I'm glad that this is what they clicked, but what are all the things that they saw prior? So the more that we can get the wider view and figure out what else was involved, the more that we can then replicate, predict. And again, I think that's going to be a huge part of 2025.
Yeah, I think that'll be a big push of AI is, if somehow like there's like an advertising specific AI that says, "Hey, where did my ad show up on this person's phone?" Or where did my, I don't know if that would be too invasion of privacy, but um, where did my ad show up in this person's life? Where did they see it? Oh, they were seen driving past. I know we talked about billboards not being a thing, but we ping their phone driving. Maybe that's too Terminator-y, but in any case, like you're right. Like you can kind of see what did they what did they see from your campaigns. So be very interesting to see again just what comes up in the next couple of years with AI and marketing and Amazon and e-commerce in general.
Yeah, I
So
mean, targeting's only getting more, oh gosh, what's the word I was going to say? Like,
scary.
I mean, it's only getting smarter. It's scary.
Smarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could potentially say scary as well.
As a
But
consumer,
yeah, I mean,
scary.
just tying in your TV with, your podcast that you're listening to and really figuring out what it takes to help with that consideration. And again, I think for every client, you can't guarantee that anyone's going to buy something, but
Right.
you want to be able to have your advertising go towards the, consistently most relevant customer at all time.
Correct.
That's what I always tell my team is that, we can't force a conversion,
Right.
but it all has to be about just driving the most qualified traffic at every period of time.
Right. Yeah, no, and I think that's uh, a great point. I think that might even be a great final thought, but I would love to give you, Ryan, a chance. One, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and talking with me about this. I feel like I have learned a lot. And I feel like that's what makes, for me at least in my head, that's what makes the mark of a good show. Getting a couple thousand views is always nice too, but I always like to just learn something. But I want to give you a chance to share any final thoughts you have for kind of really almost summing up everything we've talked about, but and also just leaving our viewers with any final thoughts about the future of marketing, about Tenuity, anything like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say in summary too, there are so many different channels. And I think that it's really important as you're looking at this, not just 2025, but even looking forward to considering 2026 is how do you want to be able to expand into a lot of these different channels just to give it a shot? Because I also don't think that there's anything really ever failed. Even if you give it a shot, let's say shooting from the hip here, let's say you give something a shot in Q2 spring 2025 and you don't find success with it. That's data that you learned if you ever want to give it a shot again. And chances are these things are only growing and getting bigger. I mean, we talked about how TikTok is at a place now that people probably didn't expect in 2020, right? And I bet a lot of these others, your Pinterest and whatnot, are only getting more complex. Walmart's getting a lot more robust. So give these things a shot if you have the incremental budget for it. Obviously, be smart, but would say to have a partner, feel validated. You can use AI if you want to, even on your own. Get some validation if you have an idea and figure out if that seems like it's going to be appropriate and if it's going to work. But don't be afraid to try some of these things. Nothing is ever just truly a failure as long as you learn something from it. You can give it a shot again later on, but we're only getting more interconnected. Would definitely encourage people to use their content and think about when they're making content, how that can play into television as well as audio. And I think that we no longer have this just one set of content mindset. It's only getting bigger. AI is taking lifestyle images and being able to apply that to the color of your product, what the product is, and apply that to someone's search. So keep all these things in mind and just be eclectic.
Yeah.
Tall
Amen.
order, I know, but it's
Yeah.
only more important.
But it's only going to get more, it's like I said, it's only going to get more important that you're on these different channels and that people see you more than once and that you're targeting the right demographics and X, Y, and Z and everything we just talked about that I won't repeat again, but go back and rewatch the episode if you missed all that. Um, but yeah, Ryan, seriously, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, absolutely, it was a pleasure. Oh, and the one thing I meant to say earlier is my slight anecdote is I was just recently in Queenstown, down
Huh.
in the bottom of New Zealand, and
Hmm.
saw a Kmart. So it's not completely
Oh,
dead,
wow.
apparently. It's just not in the US anymore.
I think there's one more. Again, I need to have a. Do you watch the Joe Rogan podcasts ever? You ever seen one of them?
Not always, not religiously, but definitely have.
Me neither, but neither. But I love when he says, "Hey Jamie, Google this for me," and he's got it in like seconds. I need someone like that. I thought Jake could maybe do that for me, but um, I know that's not always the case. And I could also always Google it, but I feel like it's cooler to say, "Hey, where's my? You're my fact checker. Can you fact check this for me?" I feel like there's one Blockbuster left in America as well. So
I
um,
think there's like one in Oregon, and I
maybe,
think one of the last Kmart's was in like my father's hometown in Watsonville, California, this real small farm town. And I remember when that disappeared, I thought that was the end of the era. But that could also just be my local bias.
yeah. And you saw a Kmart. You saw a Kmart. So I mean, they're still out there in the world. So God bless them wherever they are.
No kidding. I took
But
a
yeah,
picture.
there you go. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. To learn more about Tenuity and also about Ryan, I will have his LinkedIn profile and the Tenuity's website linked in the description below. Make sure to check them out. And again, if you like this episode and you learned something like me, make sure to like and subscribe to continue learning things with me as I talk to uh, not even more, but as I talk to more and more smart people like Ryan. So thanks everybody for watching. I am your host, Velocity Pete, and we will see you next week.